Join the conversation. Follow us on Instagram, SpiceFMKE. So the next conversation is still going to be related to what you had started, CT. How did we get here? When did the rain start beating us? And what is the nature of this rain? Is it acid rain? I mean, what is it about the rain?
Is it purple rain?
Is it purple rain? Well, see what you did there. It comes back into also our leadership and how we participate in the governance of our country. We've got political parties. Just the other day, we were celebrating Saba Saba, which was the clamor and the push and like the highlight point of the push for multipartism, a return to multipartism in Kenya. That happened in 1990. 30 years later, we have very many political parties in the country. But every time we talk about political parties, people start associating a party with an individual and saying, this party, Inile Kalonzo, Wiper. When you think about Ford Kenya, you think, okay, this is Batangula. When you think about Amani National Congress, you're thinking, this is Musalia Mudavadi. When you're thinking about ODM, it's Raila Odinga. Jubilee is Uhuru Ruto. So you are at that point where you're thinking political parties have basically become people's briefcases and they are vehicles for attaining political governance. But is that what the people who are fighting for multipartism were fighting for? Were those the ideals? We spoke to Mtumishi Njeru Kathangu, who was among those people who organized the first Saba Saba rally. And he was telling us he's still the Secretary General of Ford Asili. He still sits there and believes that Ford Asili represents certain ideals. When they are forming political parties, some people actually look at it and they see, there are certain ideals, there are certain things that we'd like to introduce to the governance of the country. And this is what we shall stand for. This is what we shall put. This is what we shall advocate. Are we there? Or just political parties?
I mean, unfortunately, from what I see and how I see the things that have been operating, is that political parties are purely vehicles to get certain individuals into positions of government. The way in which they operate. No. That's why I didn't say in Kenya. Generally, there are some countries, however, where political parties, you don't play with what their ideology is. And it's very clear from the beginning. It's never muddled. It is clear that this is the agenda that we will always pursue. Whether it is somebody who sits in this position today or 100 years from now, you join the political party because you share or are part of that ideology. And there are countries whereby that happens. However, the general way of doing things as we see it now is that it is purely a vehicle to put particular people in positions of power or to allow other individuals then to be affiliated with said power, which, in my opinion, is unfortunate.
Wouldn't you say that if you look, say, at the West, there has been an interesting occurrence with political parties as new leadership has come in, to the point where these policies and ideologies seem to merge and mix, to the point where sometimes they're not really very clear how different they actually are.
The divide between one party and the next.
The Conservative Party and the new Labour Party, they at some point seem really so similar.
Some of the things that they push are the same.
Yes.
But here is the thing, though. Right, see, we are talking about what the parties stand for and the confusion in what the party stands for. The difference with what we have in the country is an individual. Today, you talk about the Labour Party, you cannot say so and so.
No, not an individual, but a group of people.
It's a cabal of people.
A club.
They come in, they go, but then they keep changing. Right? At the top, they agree on some issues, they disagree on some issues. They go back to the populace and they say, let's remove so-and-so because he's not agreeing with what the rest of us are agreeing with. You see, there's at least a group of people. So even if today one person leaves that party, it's them who have left. The party remains. In Kenya, Musalia Mudavadi leaves ANC. Tomorrow ANC is gone.
Finished.
What party was he in before when he formed ANC? Was it UDM or something? That party, we no longer remember it. It's because it's individuals. So how do we then entrench this political party democracy in the country? There's an organization called the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. In that whole clamor for multipartism, parties came together and they formed the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, which champions the ideals of political parties and multipartism in the country. Let's talk to the chairperson of this organization, the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. She is the nominated Senator Abshiro Halake. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, my friends who are on this show.
Good morning.
Your friends are fine, and how are you today?
I am very well.
Senator, thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
We are talking about political party democracy. And there's this organization called the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, just for purposes of people who may not have, never have heard of CMD. What is
Yes.
CMD and what does it stand for?
Actually, CMD stands for the platform for parties to come together to dialogue and to entrench democratic governance in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the Center for Multi-Party Democracy belongs to all political parties. It is their space, their platform, where then they discuss, they dialogue, they hold each other and others to account, and they ensure that democratic governance is entrenched and that political parties play their rightful role, they have the right capacities, and that then they become the vehicles and tools of entrenching democracy and multi-party democracy for that matter in the country. So that's what we are. We actually are owned and work for the political parties and for democratic governance.
So it's a forum where all political parties participate.
Yes.
Is it a membership? Does a political party have to subscribe to join the CMD?
Yes. It's by membership.
Okay.
Of course, although we are, we welcome all political parties, but sometimes some of the programs and some of the, the participation is, and we get resources from political parties so that then they can have their say, they own it, and there's ownership as well. So yes, we encourage and we have members.
Who funds this organization?
Actually, we're self-funded from political parties, Kitty to a small extent, but then we also fund from other similar democratic institutions around the world. Right now we have the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, we have the Dutch, which is the NIMD, we have USAID, we have the UN Women. So we have several organizations who are in the democratic governance space that then come to us with different programs and different partnerships.
Okay, so then how involved are you from party to party? There's so many who would appear, before we even get into ideologies, who would appear to have different ideologies, and there's certain things that they're pushing for the country. How involved do you get in the operations of parties?
Actually, we don't get involved in individual parties. Each party ideally should take care of its own internal structures, its own internal ideological issues, its own internal manifestos, and their people. What we do is we capacity build them to be able then to do that for themselves. And then we bring them all together so that they can dialogue with each other and they can work together. Basically, then we become the conduit between, and we become the people that then bring them together and have them, entrench the democratic governance. But internal politics, we don't really get into it as such. But we encourage them. We make sure that the right structures, the right governance structures exist, and their capacity built to do that, and they're encouraged and help to resource themselves in different ways. And then we sort of come in at the collective level.
When you talk about multi-party democracy, then democracy stands out. So the first thing that one would expect is that you champion democracy within the political parties.
Yes, we do.
And one of the basic things about having a democracy within a political party is ensuring that a party has proper structures for allowing members to participate in the operations of the party.
Absolutely.
Therefore, it takes us to elections.
Yes.
Just looking back at political parties in this country and elections, that is one thing that it's like water and oil. Political parties in Kenya and holding grassroots elections is something that is unheard of for very many years. We haven't heard a political party organizing grassroots elections from all the way down and having even a national delegates conference where they elect their top leadership. So what is it that political parties say about this?
Eric, that's not entirely true, actually. I think you guys are so busy with your own things, you're not paying too much attention. But several parties are actively engaging in membership recruitment on a rolling basis. Some have even embraced technology and are actually using that. For instance, ODM launched a digital membership recruitment, and it's been going on for almost a year. Kanu youth have come up with this innovative idea called Jukwaa, where young party members hold town halls, and at that point they elect their leaders and they enlist members. For instance, my own party, Kanu, is also currently working on a membership drive blueprint, and we're going to launch in the next few days even an online way of which we can be working. The Registrar of Political Parties records indicate that over 13 million Kenyans have enlisted as members in various political parties. So we expect that all the newly registered parties recruited members to fully comply in regards to the elections. Therefore, people like Jubilee, Ford Kenya, Kanu, among others, have been running their grassroots strengthening programs. And before the COVID-19, Eric, we had Jubilee was supposed to hold its elections in March, if you remember. Ford Kenya conducted grassroots elections in 20 counties just last year alone. Kanu has reorganized its leadership in more than 10 counties. So I think sometimes if you really follow, and for us who are in this space, we are following. Is it perfect? I'm not supporting it to be perfect. I know we can do better. We can perhaps even do more and do that. It's fair to note that internal party election is one of the most important democratic exercises, of course. But sometimes, on occasions, we have seen parties weakening instead of strengthening as a result of these things. Because sometimes you've seen people falling off because they were not elected and what have you. Sometimes, so parties are a bit walking, a tightrope sometimes.
Senator Halake, you've talked about some. I mean, off the top of it, it's interesting that these things are happening. What role do you play in communicating some of these things that are going on? Because the general opinion or general, eye on it would be that, all right, well, not much is going on. Without the communication of the same, it becomes difficult to be aware of these things.
Right. Actually, again, our mandate is actually not communicating what parties are doing. Ideally, parties being part of the landscape of the political space as they do their things, the media is covering and what have you. And have you seen some of these things also is that these are very expensive exercises, Eric, and we sometimes, unless you're telling them, here is the money to do these things, it becomes a bit difficult to say, you go out there, do these things at this time. And so political parties sometimes struggle, to be very honest, and I'm sure that it's a subject of a lot of the issues we are facing right now about political parties funding and things like that. Sometimes political parties may want to ignore an essential element in both internal and perhaps multi-party democratic practices, such as structures, and political parties must not only be seen to do things externally, but also do things internally. So I cannot say that as Center for Multi-Party Democracy, we have advertised or we have done that, but we have supported all these processes, and that is how I know what these parties have been up to, because we've been part of it. We've been, each time there's maybe a Ford Kenya or ANC or Wiper party, issues or elections, or we are there, our officers are there, or we are providing a little bit of financing here and there to organize some of these things. Again, of course, financing is always an issue, even for us as Center for Multi-Party Democracy, especially now when international funding has dried up for a lot of the non-governmental organizations in the democratic space.
Yeah, this is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are speaking with Senator Abshiro Halake. She is a nominated senator belonging to Kanu political party, and she is the chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, a forum that brings together all political parties in the country. Well, many political parties in the country will come together and they advocate and champion democracy, political party democracy in Kenya. So when you talk about democracy in the country, when you talk about multipartism in the country, it's anchored on strong political parties. And Senator, we've just gone, before the break, we were talking about how parties are strengthening their own internal institutions, internal mechanisms, internal membership participation in the governance of their parties. And the first thing that I asked is recruitment. Yes, you've said the parties are coming up with their own best ways of recruitment. And then the elections. So you said like Ford Kenya conducted elections in some 20 counties last year. Other political parties are organizing and coming together to come up with elections. Jubilee had claimed that they were going to have elections in March. By February, there was absolutely no structure in place to indicate that Jubilee was preparing to have a nationwide election. This is the truth of the matter. Whatever they were doing behind the scenes, it was not coming out clearly, being the largest party in power. And the pushback that I was saying I'm going to come back with is there's a requirement of the law, Political Parties Act, for parties to register their returns, for parties to show that they are still active, for parties to, register their updated registers of party members. And to meet those requirements, some political parties may just do the tokenism bit of showing that we have signatures and ID numbers, and these are our members. That to meet those demands or the expectations of the law, some political parties may go out there and say that we've conducted elections. But the truth of the matter is, yes, we are busy in what we do, but we live in this country and we participate in the governance of the country. We do not see political parties organizing proper elections on the grassroots where they come up and you can tell, Ford Kenya, this is what was happening. ODM, this is the election. KANU, this is the last time KANU held an election. This is what the reality is on the ground, Senator.
For sure. Eric, I did not say that this is perfect, but what I'm trying to say, you see, that you alluded to the Political Parties Act, which requires political parties to have certain standards.
Yes.
Includes even establishment of a conspicuous, accessible, and secure place in at least 24 counties of their choice. Parties are also required, of course, to recruit at least 24,000 members, which is 1,000 members per each of these 24.
Yep.
They have to also ensure the national outlook and what have you. But on the other hand, what one thing we've seen as CMD, for instance, a lot of these parties actually have these structures because for them even to be registered, they must have satisfied. But CMD is not the registrar to ensure that these things have been done and what have you. Once we have a political party that has been registered and has a certification from the registrar of political parties, our assumption then is that they have done the requirements of the law.
Mm-hmm.
That they have functional structures from the outset, because even that's a requirement for even parties to be registered.
Yeah.
However, one of the things I know that the overhead, for instance, for running these kinds of things, be they offices around the country, they run into millions, Eric, every month.
Yeah.
So to maintain these things is quite expensive for some of these political parties. And to say that, okay, because it's too expensive, then you stop being a political party, I don't even think it's fair also, because as you know, a lot of our businesses or our just generally our things across the board may not really have the perfect governance structures in place. We're not condoning it, but for CMD, for instance, once the registrar of political parties is satisfied with a political party, however small, however briefcase, however individually facing it is, then we of course we respect, and as you know, modern civilization was based on division of labor. That particular aspect belongs to the registrar of political parties, who is enforcing these things. So for me as the chairperson, once a political party has the certification from the registrar, then I assume that they have done what they're supposed to do.
They've met the basics.
But we know, of course, that's now the basics. Now, on top of that, as way of holding ourselves or as way of supporting, I talked about how then we support, these structures. We support, if there's an election, for instance, and there's a component of it that we can support, we would definitely do that. And we've done that. And that's how, when I was describing to you the few that have done these things, I know because of the support that CMD has provided. So again, but one thing I must say, you're right. Our political parties need to move to the next level. They need to start to be ideologically based, organized, and internal structures that are really outlive the personalities, like when I was listening in, that outlive the personalities. But it's not also true that all parties just collapse. KANU has been here post-President Moi, post-President Kenyatta, post-President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was also the chairperson, and what have you. So, again, we cannot just say that it's all parties that, that are doing that. But, of course, there are certain parties that could actually disappear, yes. But, again, we're seeing a lot of parties now starting to coalescing. I don't know if I'm not certain that it's around ideologies. Unfortunately, it could be just political survival, and this is where we want to get away from to a bit more ideological based coalitions.
Okay, Senator, just looking at me, it's very interesting that you've talked about you would like to see parties in Kenya go towards the ideological in terms of practice and creed. How do you see this changing or evolving, whereby the practice has never been, in most recent times has not been ideologically based? How do you see the transition from the current way of doing things towards an ideological base, based on what you've just said?
I think the people need to be educated on the value of an ideological politics, of the value of value-based politics, of the value of good leadership in politics. And these are some of the things people are now realizing. Remember when people chose certain personalities, and I don't want to mention names, and then they discover these people cannot run the cities, or they cannot run counties, or what have you. People are starting to learn, and these are some of the things we're starting to teach people as a civic education towards ensuring that we are thinking of the right leadership, we are thinking of the right governance when we choose the people that we choose, that we're choosing the right things, as opposed to voting perhaps because somebody has the money to do these kinds of things. It will take time, but these are some of the things that we're engaging in terms of at CMD with political parties and with the rest of it. A lot of times it's very easy for us to blame parties or party leaders or leaders generally. But I'd like to urge a team at SPICE, because I know you're very serious and you do these things. Look at the followership. Look at the people that vote us in. What do they want? And what do they know to? And so it's becoming very difficult, because there are people who've told me, Senator, I have been told I'm not electable. Even I have been told, reason or you're too honest, you're not a politician. If you're not going to tell people what they want to hear, then you're wasting your time.
You don't belong here.
Exactly. And our political parties are not in a vacuum. They're part of this society, they're part of this community. And so therefore they're below optimum, I accept. And we're trying so hard to make sure that we start to shift the minds of our leaders and of our followers, because if you one day start thinking, leaders are bad, they're rotten, fine, but who would you choose?
But Senator, I must come back to you on this, because I'm trying to imagine a party that talks about, let's just pick three things out of the hat now, whose ideology is one, development, economic empowerment, and social justice, for example. Right? Now, if there is a party that is based on these ideologies that begins to practice in the country, and anybody who goes through the processes of such a party, whenever they were in a position of leadership, they made sure that those three things happened. And the people who were governed saw that this actually happened, that we saw economic development take place, that we saw issues of social justice being sorted out. Whether it was one person for 5 years, the next person for another 5 years. Don't you think that would be the way that then we would shift from this platform for individuals being at the seat of government to a party that is actually based on ideologies moving the people forward? Because it seems like people say that there are parties with ideologies, and we would say we'd like to get there, but it really isn't happening, to be honest.
Who is to make them happen? we as citizens, and I'm going to push back on this, you guys, is that, we are always, right now, perhaps I'm the one to make it happen, but you will not vote me in. So what I'm saying is this: it's about time we also start taking responsibility
as citizens.
As citizens, are you going to vote for the person that perhaps would bring those three elements: the social justice, the economic development? It won't be that person that will be voted in, and therefore the party will front at the bottom line, guys. A party is there to get power. This is how politics works.
Yep. That's
so
we know that.
Yes. If let's say I become that person, let's just hypothetically, let's say I'm that person that would have executed those three things, but I don't have. And perhaps I won't have a chance because of the fact that what the electorate wants is a person that would give them money, and I don't have it. So again, we need to share the responsibility at the very least. As citizens,
we agree.
Would you give a chance?
To a certain extent.
The political party, you think will front me? Even if I was the person that would have ensured that we get those things? Maybe not, because
has the political party done enough work of fronting you as a candidate, of selling you to the members of that party? If a political party went and recruited members, then there must be something that came and convinced that KANU used to convince Eric Latif to join KANU. And
absolutely, Eric.
If KANU therefore is an influential organ that can influence me to join it, then it can also influence me to vote for Abshiro Halake. Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, let's say we're not there yet, and we're not, and that's why we're having this discussion.
Yeah.
And it will take time. But what I'm trying to say is this: it's about time we also started to look at our role in the status that we find ourselves in, because and of course we're doing our best, at least especially wearing the hat of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, where I am on radio stations every single morning, in even I've learned mother tongues that I haven't learned in yet, trying to explain saving democratic spaces. But it will take a village, it will take a county, it will take a region for us to start waiting for a political party or somebody to do it. And for us to then start demanding these things as citizens. Do we have a role as political? Absolutely. Perhaps we have more responsibility, yes, political and other responsibility. But it's about time even us people, we start then giving a chance to people, to leaders that would actually bring about this change that we want.
Let's take another break, Senator. This conversation continues. We have on the line Senator Abshiro Halake. She's a nominated KANU senator. She's also the chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. We are discussing the role of political parties in entrenching democracy in the country. Good morning, 25 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at the traffic.
All right, on Magadi Road, between a trailer and a small vehicle, there has been an accident, unfortunately. There's a blind spot there that, obviously, because it's a blind spot, many people don't seem to see it. And this has caused an accident this morning. It's affecting traffic all the way then towards Langata Road. And there's a build-up there that will take you all the way down to the T-Mall roundabout. That's a problem this morning. So you need to be careful. 1. 2, you need to be aware of why you're not moving. So that's what's happening up ahead. Hopefully, the police will clear it out as soon as possible because they're already on the scene. That's what's affecting traffic on Langata Road today. Coming off Mombasa Road and getting into the city via Uhuru Highway, this is bumper to bumper. It's moving very slowly, but it'll open up in about half hour or so we don't have too much to worry about there. All right, Jogo Road and getting into the CBD via the City Stadium roundabout, that's opening up too. And this is traffic coming from industrial area, Jogo Road and other areas. So that'll open up. We shouldn't have much of a problem. So traffic looks good apart from the odd accident here or there. Coming off of Thika Road, getting into the CBD as well. It's fine. Service lanes are open and they're moving along swiftly today. And Muthaga Corner and Kiambu Road are not causing too much of an issue for Thika Road today. All right. Let us know what you see as well. Spice of MKE. That's on Twitter.
3 minutes to 9 o'clock. This conversation continues, entrenching political party democracy in the country. Speaking with the chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, Kenya, Senator Abshiro Halake. In the room is Eric Latif, Nduoko, and C.T. Muga.
Madam Senator, I wish to ask the following.
Yes.
Are political parties a constitutional requirement? That's my first question.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we organize ourselves in the democratic space. It is a requirement, really. Although we don't have to, you're not excluded from running if you don't have a political party. But it's a democratic organization that, political parties then, and that's why we have acts and statutes that are actually entrenching the political party.
Basically, the Constitution recognizes political parties.
It recognizes, but my question was very specific. Is it a requirement?
Well, it's not necessarily. You see, the country is governed not just by the requirements of the supreme laws. We also have statute laws.
Let me ask this question a different way. Must we have political parties to have a democracy?
We don't have. But how do you execute? What are the mechanisms for executing the democratic, initiatives if you're not self-organized in party politics?
Are we saying that self-organization must be in political parties?
In the political space, it seems like the best of ways, to me anyway.
What else would it be, CT? I mean, we're talking about organizing yourselves politically so that you are able to better govern your country democratically.
Yes.
How else would we organize ourselves, CT?
Where I'm actually going with this question, I'm asking questions which in and of themselves appear to be obvious for a very simple reason.
Yes.
It is because we assume that these things are obvious that we sometimes find ourselves in the quagmire that we are in. Because with assumptions come expectations which are based on assumptions. For instance, we keep talking about ideologies. Must political parties have ideologies as prescribed by, say, the West? Because that seems to be our model.
Right.
Must they?
No.
And I'm saying no. Where I'm heading with this is our political parties are led by individuals. So we could argue that our political parties are individuals. And I'm saying, is it necessarily wrong?
Again, it's a good question. It's a very good question. You're right. It's a very good question. Is it wrong or is it? But remember, we talk about inclusion and participation by people. So having just one person vested with so much power to decide on everybody else, perhaps may tend towards autocracy.
Yeah.
And that is why this is why the proponents of multi-party democracy preferred, or at least encouraged, the self-organization within a political party where different people participate, different requirements for face of, let's say, Kenya or face of the country in which the political party is resident. Because you cannot, outside of an institution, it's institutionalization that is important, and that's what political parties are, the institutions of democracy.
If we personalize and individualize our democracy, CT, I mean, what are we going to have?
You see, that's what we do with political parties.
But isn't that what we have right now?
Yes, that's what we do with political parties. Because you talk of individuals and you're thinking of a unitary measure, one person. But if you have two or three people who think the same thing, they're also unitary.
Yes, and then they come together into an institution.
So all I'm actually arguing is this. You're talking about a variety of the same thing. One appears to be more democratic because more people are involved, but they're of the same mind.
Not necessarily, surely. Let's say you have women in a political party. They probably don't think exactly the same as the man would think. You have young people. They don't think the same as the octogenarians. Somehow we cannot really look at it from such a cynical perspective where we say, well,
Madam Senator, I apologize. The idea was not to sound cynical, but rather inquisitive.
No. It's good. I'm also trying to say it may appear that way, because if, let's say, you genuinely brought on board women, you brought on board young people, you brought on board older people who maybe historical perspective, you brought on board diversity that is our country. Are you going to tell me that every person, no matter who is the leader of that, however, it cannot be such groupthink and such group ideology, surely? And this is why the requirement of the Political Parties Act was to ensure that at least 24 counties, because our counties also are very varied, they're very diverse. People in northern Kenya are not exactly the same of mindset or the same exposure as people in central Kenya or in West. So, of course, that's expectations, but they're not untrue, you know. Ideally, when we come together, and again, I know the cynicism could come out of the fact that we haven't got it right. But it's not time to give up. It's a time to say, what can I play? What role can I play as media, as the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, as leaders, and as individuals, to make sure that we start changing these things. And I agree with you. Yes, we do have people coming together that are thinking the same and are just executing what perhaps the leader of the party is saying.
In fact, the party you belong to is a perfect example in this sense. We have many parties, literally everybody who is in some diverse political party in this country was at some point or the other in KANU, yes. And to understand this, you only need to look at the way they go about their business. You actually see a replication of what KANU has done over the years. It's couched in all sorts of interesting language, and democracy is liberally spread in the conversations. And the people and the wants of the people are also very liberally thrown into the conversation.
And maendeleo.
Right.
And wananchi. And development. But...
So actually, the new KANU Sasa is the one that's now the new one. The rest have moved on with their old ideologies and stuff.
Can I ask a question that maybe could help into this? And it's basic, it may sound rudimentary, but why? Because you talked about recruitment drives around the country, so that's clearly something that's happening. Why are people, young people across divides, why are they joining political parties in Kenya today? From what you've seen,
actually, for various reasons. There are those that I know the young people right now. Of course, unemployment is at its highest, and some of them think that it could be a career for them. Others think that others actually have political ambitions, you know. Others probably think, I need to be close to power to be able to. So there's different things why people are joining. Yeah, because people come to me and say, I'd like to join KANU, for instance, because I want to run, and then some of them are actually joining because when they see, let's say, when they see a certain individual perhaps that they would like to align themselves with, so these are some of these things that people are joining for. But again, of course, everybody has different motivations. I can't know exactly why some people are joining and some people are not. So basically, the ones that I have interacted with, the young people have said they also want to make sure that they're represented, because they keep saying, we don't have employment, we don't have this, and therefore we have to be at the table. And they think that resources follow maybe power or things like that. So there are a lot of people that do that. I know the university students usually have told me that when I've had Jukwa sittings with them.
And why do they choose KANU and not another party?
Actually, all parties are attracting people.
No, I'm talking about the ones that join KANU that you've talked to.
The ones I've talked to that have joined KANU have been attracted perhaps by many things, actually. Sometimes people see that, let me just, and when I'm talking about, when I'm a Center for Multi-Party Democracy chair, I'm trying to be careful not to really highlight KANU too much, because at this point I should be highlighting everybody. But I know what's happening in KANU a bit more than what's happening even in all the other parties. So please allow me to. A few months ago, we were actually rated as the most reformed party. So again, this kind of thing, and we pushed that and said we are one of the most reformed parties, and we have also pushed the narrative that we are the party of independence. We have the resilience, we have the we are a party that is in all the counties, and therefore we have certain advantages structurally because we've been there.
This is the language that you use when you're going out on recruitment drives. This is what you basically is your marketing language strategy.
It's the truth. It's also the truth, Eric. You know why? As much as people, of course, we have been branded as a party that was, misrule and all those kinds of things, which could be true. But the party I am in now is not the party that was there before. Literally everybody that was accused of this thing is no longer in the party.
Yeah.
The party that I am in now is a party that handed over power very peacefully in 2002 when the people decided it didn't need our us to be in power. It is the party that brought independence. It's the party that stepped back and repealed the Section 2A that is that party. So a party is not the buildings, it's the people. And right now, Kanu has quite a lot of news. And a lot of our parties have tried to do this thing.
Yeah.
And have been holding government accountable in the opposition, for instance, be it ODM and be it the NASA group. So it is not all doom and gloom. I know we could do better, but again, for me, really, I am starting to really push this back to our electorate, to our citizens. What are you making us do? Are you the ones that are really making the political parties just go to these kinds of...
I'm going to tell you, if you allowed people to participate in the running of your political parties, then you will see what they want you to do. And I go back to the question of elections and having nationwide elections and proper elections being conducted. If people were actually participating in these organizations, then they would bring in change into those organizations. Probably the noises that you hear from people outside political parties or during elections, you would have heard those noises long before if you had proper working structures of political parties. And you're saying, yes, that the people have a role to play. And I want to also put it the other way around. I see a political party as an influencer. Now, if a political party as an influencer is not taking its influential role in the community and saying, you know what, these are the ideals, this is what we stand for. Do not elect somebody who is a thief or who is has questionable sources of income into elective positions. This is what we would like to champion. Therefore, we'd like to champion somebody who is more sober-minded, somebody who is development conscious, somebody like Abshiro Halake. This is the person that we are propping for elective positions. Then the people, because these are political parties that's influential, people are likely to be influenced by what the party is saying. We don't get that.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But let's just take an example. Let's take an example of this kind of person that has been propped by a party. Okay, let's just take an example, and it's going to be very simplistic. Let's take Peter Kenneth.
Yep.
He has been known to have, run his CDS very well. He has been sort of associated with... Let's take Martha Karua. Have they been elected?
Yes.
Where are they?
They haven't won the election, but they have gotten votes.
Okay.
And they have at some point been elected as the people's representatives.
Yes. Peter Kenneth, as you say, is touted as having run a good CDF because he was elected and he was in that position. Peter Kenneth opted to vie for presidency. Many people did not agree maybe with the what he was saying, or they did not resonate with what he was saying, but he also still got some votes. Martha Karua, the leader of NARC Kenya, has run NARC Kenya, and you can say that she has gotten an increase in the number of people who are now subscribing to NARC Kenya, but she also got a substantial number of votes in the last election in Kirinyaga.
Okay. But my point is made. I hope you understand. I am. My point is made. They are not sitting on the table of decision making today.
Yeah.
Are they?
True.
So again, it's.
They are sitting in the.
In political space, Eric and team. As long as you haven't come to the table.
And which is this table, madam?
Parliament.
Let's say it's parliament. Let's say it's presidency. Let's say, because how do you influence consequential change from the
big table?
Are you saying, Senator, essentially that unless you're at the big table, you cannot influence any kind of change in this country?
You can. I'm not saying that. All I'm trying to say is this. I was just trying to push back on the idea that, political parties should put the right people and we will vote for them. And I've just given you examples of perhaps, and simply just put people that the political parties have put forth that perhaps could have had good credentials or could have had, could have fallen in that description. They haven't seen. Remember Wangari Maathai? So again, I'm not saying, and I'm not blaming the electorate, but I'm just saying that we all bear responsibility of ensuring, and we're working very hard, and as Center for Multi-Party Democracy, to ensure that people and our electorate and our parties start to shift towards what we're discussing today: good governance.
Yep.
Good value systems, social justice, and the economic development for all, inclusivity and equity, and execution as per our rule of law. Our supreme laws of constitution has one of the most progressive clauses. So, but what I'm trying to say is this: it's a journey, and that journey cannot just, and that responsibility can just be for political parties. The political parties are a cross-section of this society, and so we bear the responsibility as citizens, as media, as politicians, and as voters.
As members of political parties, we the voters, if we are members of political parties, then we will participate. But when you're not, and political parties are other people's tools, then we will not be able to participate. Senator, thank you very much for speaking to us.
But you can change that, Eric. You can change that.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
If you know what? If you said, I will not vote for this party because of A, B, C, D, or if you, there's a certain way. But what will because this is a discussion for another day. But we're working on this sensitization. I'm saying to people, please start to take individual responsibility.
Okay, asante sana. Senator, thank you for speaking to us. We know you're going into the Senate.
I'm to Parliament for this
so
revenue.
What's this standoff? I mean, what is there a light somewhere at the end of this tunnel?
I think today, either way, we'll come up with something, and I'm sure there'll be consensus building. This is what politics is all about. Let's see how it goes. I don't want to say much.
Why has there been no consensus so far?
Of course, there's interest, and in this interest, there was a bit of hardline on different things, but I'm sure there'll be consensus. Consensus cannot be built in one day, so there's been a bit of a push to do that.
All right. So the conversation is going to happen in the Senate today, and we hope to...
Yeah, just now. In fact, I was hoping to do this interview from the car, but I didn't really reach the car door, so I'm still at home. I need to go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Rush off then.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Abshiro Halake is a nominated senator for Kanu, and also she's the chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Yeah, we ask those questions. We put on our opinions as well as we are doing the questions. And these conversations must happen. Political parties in this country must get to a point where they allow member participation. That's my bottom line. I don't know what yours is.
Well, I mean, if you're going to call for responsibility of certain things to be done when it comes to the political frameworks through which the country operates, then at the same time, you're going to have to ask for people's opinions. You're going to have to include people's opinions. You're going to have to include people's wants and desires or dislikes. You're going to have regard for them. It can't just be that one person makes the decisions and then you ask people to take responsibility. How? It just doesn't make sense. It's got to be inclusive.
Nope, it won't be.
Well, if you're going to ask for responsibility, there has to be something on the other side. Otherwise, don't ask people to take responsibility for something that you're not going to involve them in.
It must appear to happen.
There are two discussions taking place here. There's what ideally we think and hope would happen, and there's what has happened in the past and continues to happen. It isn't complicated, really. You really think our political parties really want change? they are so similar in so many ways. They are so similar. So even when you're joining the other, it's probably because of just some interest and affiliation, and maybe you like the person more than you like the other.
Or who took you in today.
Yes, or the region that seems to highly favor that particular party, and which guarantees you to some degree that there's a greater likelihood of you being elected if you stand or if you vie on that particular ticket. You see, the evolutionary process of political parties in this country is clear. The process is there, but the status quo is actually what people want to maintain. And those in power agitate for change, get there, and then are the front runners, and then are at the forefront of ensuring the status quo is maintained.
The other day we were watching a news feature on KTN News, which was reminding us about elections in Fort Kenya. Remember? And you could see members of, Fort Kenya had announced this is what we're going to have a national delegates conference, and we're going to have this. We keep talking about how, at what point did Moi say, let's repeal Section 2A? It was at a national delegates conference. When is the last time you saw a political party in this country holding a national delegates conference?
Man, you'd be hard pressed to remember. And part of the reason is because it didn't happen.
Yep.
Yes. And it isn't one party.
It's all
across
political
board
parties. From the big one to the small one, from Jubilee to ODM to Wiper to
ANC to Ford Kenya to Ford Asili.
All of them. To NARC Kenya to Maendeleo Chap. All of them.
So
as long as you don't have structures that allow people to participate.
And they all talk democracy.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Talk about it's an oxymoron, that one. Really.
We say this is democracy. It's political party democracy.